Hey, welcome to a feature we're going to have often, which is talking about the upcoming series. I call it, now, believe it or not, Tyler, this is creativity at its finest. I'm calling it Series Overview.
Do you think people will be able to know what the series is about?
No, probably not. But we are going to have a little time on New Hope Underground talking about the upcoming sermon series, and we've got one coming up right away. I mean, this is February 1st that we're recording, and it's coming up this next Sunday. But it's going to be a 2-month-long series.
Yeah, it's a big series.
Yeah. So give us the title and jump right in.
Yeah, absolutely. So this series, we're really, really excited about it. It's called Long Story Short. So I will try to make the long story short. Essentially, what we're trying to accomplish with this series is we're going to give an overview of the story of the Old Testament. I mean, starting from Genesis, the creation of the world, the fall into sin, all the way through the formation of Israel, the call of Abraham, the kings, the prophets, the exile, the return from exile. And what we're going to try to do at every single part or season of the Old Testament story to show that all along throughout the story, it was pointing toward Jesus all along. That, in which you always make that joke about how, the New Testament is about Jesus and the Old Testament is about Jesus.
Exactly.
And so we're kind of showing, which is cool because this season is leading up. I mean, it's kind of going through the Lenten season up to Easter. And so this is kind of perfect to show how, this, the Old Testament was pointing, it had an arc pointing toward Christ all along. It was about him all along. And so we're going to kind of show that throughout the series.
I think a lot of us have heard that, and we've heard of certain Old Testament references.
Yeah.
But this is going to give us a good overview of like the whole history and idea of the Old Testament.
Yeah, like at every single point, it's pointing toward and connected to Christ in some way. He fulfilled something in the midst of that.
I mean, we're starting with creation in the fall, and we're going all the way through the time of the prophets, which would be Malachi, would be the last one written.
Yeah.
It happens to be the last book, but not everything in the Old Testament is chronologically written. So we're kind of giving an overview of the history. And what, in your own words, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but in your own words, like what does the history of Israel have to do with us?
Oh, well, I mean, Paul talks about this. He says that in some ways the story of Israel is our story because as we become in the body of Christ, because I mean, Jesus himself is in every way that Israel failed to be the people of God, Jesus succeeded. And so by becoming a part of the body of Christ, we are Israel essentially. Like their story is our story of the fall into sin and sent off into exile and a returning by the mercy of God. That's the story of the cross. That all of it was pointing toward what would ultimately be fulfilled at the cross all along, and we share in that story. So Paul writes about that, saying that all of these stories were meant for your benefit so that you would learn from them as you walk kind of spiritually the same story.
I think it's so cool how God chose Israel, he elected Israel to bring about the Messiah. And I think a lot of people get confused with what does that mean, that he elected them, but I don't think it means that they're all saved.
Yeah.
Because obviously they had times of rebellion and they were judged for it, and a lot of people were not saved.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean they're saved, but elect means that they were given access to God and given access to the Messiah himself.
Yeah.
And then Paul talks a lot about how they rejected the Messiah and how, the Messiah is now for everyone. Jesus is for everyone.
Yeah.
So the Old Testament is always pointing to Jesus and the coming of Jesus since the beginning, absolutely. Even in Genesis 3, which you're going to start with.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to kick the series off and kind of show, even from the beginning, the fall in the garden, there were glimmers of hope and offers of this Messiah who would come to save them from their sins.
It is so cool when you look at the Bible as a whole. I know that it was written over a period of 1,600 years, 40 some different authors.
Yeah.
And somehow it still hangs together. And when you look at Genesis and the tree of life, and you find the tree of life in Revelation 22, that should tell you a little bit about what God's theme is.
Yeah.
God's theme is how we keep running away from him, and he keeps bringing us back so that he can restore us to what we once were, what he created us to be.
Yeah, what started being sent
without
out of
sin.
Being sent out of a garden, we're being welcomed into a similar one. It's cool.
The Garden of Eden theme is so central to the Bible. But that's fantastic. So if you I want to talk about our small groups here in just a second, because we're going to kind of, this is the one series, we do 1 or 2 series a year, but we really try to get the whole church involved when it comes to our groups as far as the curriculum matching up to the sermon series and so forth. And
Yeah, we kind of, this is one of those, and that's why we were excited about this being a longer series, is we're actually writing curriculum for this. We've got some video resources that'll help, but then we kind of write our own discussion questions and stuff to engage, and we're inviting all small groups to maybe even like temporarily put a pin in what they're doing and be a part of this series. And we know that the student groups are actually doing their own version of the curriculum too. So we're all going to be learning about the story of God leading up to the cross.
Yeah, I want to get into a couple of real quick particular things about that. But before I do, in your own words, why this series that we're pushing for everybody to do as opposed to the other series? Why is this important?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the timing, it's perfect because it is leading up to, like, we'll be ending the series just couple weeks before Easter.
Yeah.
And so showing how, the story of God was pointing toward Jesus all along, it's perfect for the timing of that, but also for a sense of biblical literacy, if that's something that's been lost over the decades, is people are increasingly losing biblical literacy of knowing the story of God and how Jesus fits in all that. Because oftentimes we think of the Old and New Testament as just separate things that have nothing to, like, God tried to do something in the Old Testament, but it didn't work, so plan B is the cross. But the Bible actually shows, no, it was God's plan from the foundation of the world that the Lamb would be slain. And time again, you see these glimmers pointing to it. And so we want to kind of raise up that value of biblical literacy.
We want our church to know the story, not just the stories.
Yeah.
Maybe a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I love it. So good.
Hey, as far as curriculum goes, just all the groups out there, you can go, a lot of our leaders can go to newhopechurch.cc/leaders, find the group guides on there. But the group guides, basically, we have some videos for them to watch. Not videos that we've made this time. Yeah. We're kind of pointing you to the BibleProject.com.
Yeah, fantastic resources.
Fantastic.
We've been really excited finding things that fit so well with what we're doing.
Yeah, so they'll have some very specific video links that you can watch a video together as a group. And then the discussion guides that you referenced, leaders will be able to pull those out and be able to use those questions for your group. And they go right along with our sermons. Now, there's only 2 lessons for each month, 2 in February and 2 in March, because this is a 2-month process.
Yeah.
But there's a sermon every Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to match up the discussion questions with every sermon, but we are kind of coupling 2 sermons at a time, if you will, into those questions. So that's fantastic. Well, hey, thanks for being on.
Hey, my pleasure.